Welcome to Canberra.
So we're here to drive a hard bargain.
I've said constantly, and I really can't say anything else except that all I'm after is the right for the areas I represent to survive. We're not surviving in rural Australia. We've been declining for 25 years. Our industries are all collapsing. Our populations are going. Every business can look forward to less and less income every year.
Everyone
less and less jobs. That's up to them, really, not me.
What are the key issues for you then?
Oh, look, it's no secret that Tony Windsor and myself have spoken about ethanol. I mean, you just got to ask what's wrong in a country. I mean, the rest of the world, I mean, almost every country in Europe is subsidising biofuels. The Brazilians, the Americans, by law, every barrel that contains ethanol. In Australia, by law, they can't.
Bob, when you say that you want to fight for the survival of the right to resist the people in your election, what are you talking about sustainable? Well, what
Look, you know, I mean, it's just a different paradigm. We've been under a paradigm that, yes, we can free market. Yes, there's no quarantine restrictions. Anything can come into Australia. The apples were allowed in recently. Warren Truss made a decision for the bananas to come in. Thank goodness he was thrown out on his head before they came in. I mean, everything can come into this country. We told them if you bring in prawns, you'll bring in diseases. Now the Great Barrier Reef, which I represent, is being venomously attacked by IHHNB. We actually said, if you bring the prawns in, you'll bring in white spot and IHHNB. Well, they brought them in. Now we've got IHHNB.
Is the coalition's broadband plan good enough?
Look, I'm not intimately familiar, and people are telling me that it's a good idea and it's good for Australia, and most certainly a privatised system is not where I'm going to go. I mean, Telstra's privatisation was diabolical for rural Australia. In fact, every privatisation has been diabolical for rural Australia. Clearly, you can sustain those services in the city, you can't in the country.
Tony Abbott said today that you shouldn't do a deal with Labor because a Labor-Greens coalition will be bad for the bush. Do you think he's right?
Yeah. No, look, I'm not making any presumptive statements one way or the other. I mean, Tony's mob were in there for 12 years. At the end of the 12 years, there was a farmer committing suicide every 4 days in this country. You know, if they were good for the bush, I'm a Martian astronaut. Whether the ALP has turned anything back, you know, in the last 3 years, well, I'm not too sure that there's
What about the idea of serving? What about the idea of serving in a government, whether it's Abbott or would you serve as a minister?
No, I'm a very experienced minister. I was there for more than a decade. I think I was second or third ranking minister when the government fell. I'm not in the business of being conned. I might look like a mug, but
what do you think of a power sharing agreement in which both Labor and the coalition are governed?
Look, the adversarial politics of Australia, the Woolworths and Coles politics, it's bad enough in the economy. It's absolutely dreadful. And the Australian people on Saturday rejected a Woolworths and Coles political system. Rejected it outright and out of hand, and I don't think it'll ever turn back now. Before I became an independent, I checked up, not one single federal member had ever been returned. They'd been elected as an independent, never been returned. Now they're getting returned all the time and getting returned with increased majorities. And we're joined by another, arguably 2 independents now. So the ranks are growing of complete disgust with the mainstream parties and a less adversarial system, I think, may well work a lot better than it is.
You've been told one of the most
coalition can work with a Green Senate.
I'm sorry,
You've been called one of the most powerful men in Australia at the moment. What do you say to that?
Oh, look, you know, I wielded great power in the state of Queensland. Jockey Peterson nominated myself and Lynn Powell to take over when he left. I've wielded power before. I come from a family that's had a lot of power for about 5 generations in Australia. I'm used to power. I feel comfortable with it.
You want a stable government, but do you think the coalition can get its bills through a Senate where the Greens hold the balance of power? Do you think that can be stable for 3 years?
It sounds like they're going to have to learn to, I suppose. No, look, you say instability, and the system in Australia has been a very primitive system. I mean, it really is an 18th century system of government, a two-party system where you vote along party lines. Americans don't vote along party lines. But there's no other country I know on earth, not even England, has a two-party system now. So, we're breaking away into a more sophisticated model, and Australia's got to wake up. That doesn't mean instability, it means democracy.
Well, Warren Truss,
are you meeting with the other independents tonight?
Yeah, I'm going straight now. If you people will give me a chance.
Are you confident that you'll be voting as a bloc, and how long do you think it'll be before you decide?
We've worked very, very closely. If you look over, 3 years, and also we're very friendly with each other. When I was in the National Party and arguably, sort of like the Liberal Party as well, I mean, they just didn't meet all the time and talk to each other and were friends with each other. Whether that's the competitive nature of politics, they want to become ministers or something, well, none of us are interested in that.
What do you want to see happen with water policy in the Murray-Darling Basin?
Look, it makes me really angry when I get a question like that. You say water, and all you can think of is the Murray-Darling Basin. The Murray-Darling is 21 million megalitres of water. Just one of my rivers, just one river in North Queensland has 22 million megalitres of water. I mean, for heaven's sake, why are you trying to do the farming where there's no water? 60% of Australia's farming is being done where there's no water. For heaven's sake, I build some dams, there hasn't been one built in 30 years, and do some farming where all the water is. Surely that's the logical thing that should happen.
Queenslanders know who you are. The rest of the country has woken up in the last couple of days and gone, who is that guy with the giant hat? How would you describe yourself to them? And are you going to look after their interests or just your own electorate?
Yeah, keep big hats, Maverick Image. There are two books that are on the reading list at university, and both of them are about what I did when I was Aboriginal Affairs Minister in Queensland. I suggest you get those books. They're on the reading list at the university.
Warren Truss says that he wants you and him to forgive and forget and be best buddies. Can you see that happening?
Should have thought of that before he shot his mouth off the other night, shouldn't he? He's obviously had his backside well and truly kicked.
And what about Barnaby?
Do you find it ironic that rural issues are now on the agenda after such a election campaign that didn't focus on rural issues?
The LNP had the balance of power for 12 years in this country. They could have done then what, please God, we'll be able to do now. But I sit under a picture of Jack McEwen, and I'm very proud to sit under that picture, the Old Country Party, my old party. And he was asked, does the Country Party tail wag the Liberal dog? And he said, yes.
How would you describe Julia Gillard's time as Prime Minister? Has she been a good Prime Minister?
Julia's a person you can talk to, and she genuinely listens. And she's got a good sense of humour. And they're big things. I mean, I think that stands hockey in good stead as well. And I don't mean that to denigrate from Tony Abbott. Tony has, amazed me in the sense, I mean, his performance in this election campaign was nothing less than brilliant. And also, I mean, I like the sort of things he was saying. I mean, he talks about direct action with respect to carbon, and I'd prefer to say pollution problems, and that's where we should always have been. But in fairness to Kevin Rudd and to Julia Gillard, but it was Kevin Rudd's government, they actually did act on direct action. I mean, they didn't talk about it, they were actually doing it. So, more power to them too on this issue. No, I haven't had a lot to do with Tony Abbott, but I got on very well with Tony Abbott. I consider Joe Hockey a good friend. I've always liked Hockey, enjoyed his company, and I've always got on well with Julia Gillard. I got on very well with Kevin Rudd, of course.
You're not is fundamentally a Conservative electorate?
No, it's not. It's never been a Conservative electorate. It's always been a Labor electorate, except for my family. When my father died, I went immediately over to the Labor Party. 4 of the 6 seats inside my electorate are Labor seats.
Would that play a factor in your thinking?
And I thought it was fairly stupid of Kerry Lonergan the other night to argue with me. He knew more about the Kennedy electorate than I did. He must be a very clever man.
What do you think about Tony Abbott's broadband plan?
Look, I haven't looked at it closely, but it seems to me that it's got an awful lot of private ownership associated with it, and you can't go down that pathway. People have got to understand that 90% of the surface area of Australia, there's nobody living there. There's only 670,000 people there, and 90% of the surface area. When Captain Cook arrived, it was 360,000 people. Well, we haven't made a lot of progress, have we? And there's the great Jack McEwen and the great Ted Theodore, easily the 2 most important people in Australian history. As they both said, You'll read that in my history book, which will be published shortly. But those two people said, this great treasure which is Australia, if we don't develop it, if we don't occupy it, I fear greatly that we will not be able to hold on to it. Now, I'm not an important person, but they were the two great men of Australian politics, and I think just about every historian would agree on that.
So you're name-checking a famous Labor figure and a famous country Liberal Party figure. Are you doing that just to confuse us? I mean, the eyes of the country are on you at the
go into my office, and there are only three pictures. One is my own family with Jockey Peterson, which is pretty predictable, but the two big pictures on the wall, one is of Theodore and one is of Jack McEwen.
The eyes of the country are on you and the two other independents at the moment, though. What are you going to do? How do you feel?
I'll just say to you that I have watched friends of mine commit suicide. I have watched hundreds of my close friends bankrupted and their lives destroyed. I've watched towns literally closed down before my eyes. I've watched football teams cease to exist, rugby league official. I've watched all of those things happen for 25 years. And I'm not saying it's payback time now, but I'm asking for a fairer go, and I'm entitled to do that. Now, look, people, I really got a meeting to go to, and I thank you very much for your attention.